The first thing Jaden heard was the pop, not from his own car, but from the silver sedan ahead of him on the dark, rain-slick road. A second later, a sharp thud-thud echoed through the night as the car wobbled to the shoulder, its hazard lights blinking like a distressed heartbeat. Jaden eased his old black Honda Pilot behind her, engine humming, wipers dragging across the windshield with a tired squeak. As he stepped out, yellow streetlights washed over his hoodie and jeans, the cold October wind slipping beneath the fabric. He saw her mid-30s, hair frizzed from the drizzle, hands trembling on the steering wheel. "Hey ma'am," he called, lifting both palms where she could see them. "You okay?" Her eyes flicked to his face, then to his skin, then to the empty street behind them. For a moment, she just stared. "I think my tire blew," she said, voice shaky. "I don't know what to do." Jaden offered a small, shy smile. "It's okay. I can fix it for you. You got a spare?" She hesitated, as if deciding something about him, about this lonely road, about trust and danger. The rain tapped harder, drumming on the metal roof of both cars. Finally, she nodded. "In the trunk, please. I just want to get home." She climbed out, hugging her coat tight, her perfume mingling with the smell of wet asphalt and rubber. As Jaden walked toward the back of her car, he glanced at her license plate without thinking, just a quick, meaningless habit. He didn't know yet that in a few minutes she would look at his plate, and everything about this quiet act of kindness would crack wide open. Jaden Davis was 17 years old and tired down to his bones, but he still stopped. He always stopped for people, for dogs wandering too close to traffic, for a kid who dropped their backpack in the crosswalk. It was a thing his mom had drilled into him. If you got something to give the world, even if it's just time, you give it. So even though his hands were still greasy from his part-time shift at the auto shop, and his hoodie smelled faintly of oil and metal, he didn't think twice. The woman hovered near the passenger door, pulling her phone out, fingers fumbling at the screen. Her name he'd learned later was Emily Carter. She worked at a real estate office across town, lived in the suburbs where lawns were edged straight and neighbors waved with the same practiced smile. Right now, though, she just looked like someone trying not to cry on the side of a dark road. "You don't have to wait in the rain," Jaden said, kneeling by the trunk as it clicked open. "You can sit in your car while I change it." He heard the doubt in her pause, that tiny inhale, the calculation. "No, it's fine," she said, staying where she was. He caught her reflection in the rear bumper, arms crossed, posture stiff, eyes scanning the road like something might jump out of the shadows. He shook it off and hauled the spare from the trunk, muscles straining. The metallic scent of damp tools and mud filled the air as he pulled out the jack. College money, he thought. He'd been saving every tip, every extra hour. One day he'd leave this town, its whispers, its sideways looks, the store clerks who followed him with their eyes. "You do this a lot?" she asked after a moment. "Work on cars?" "Yes, ma'am," he replied, sliding the jack under the frame. "Work at Monty's Auto. I'm good with tires." Lightning flashed faintly far off, lining the clouds in silver for half a second. Emily shifted from foot to foot, hugging herself tighter as if the storm was inside her, not just in the sky. She didn't know it yet, but the boy kneeling in the rain was about to become the most complicated story she'd ever tell herself about fear and gratitude. The lug wrench slipped with a harsh metallic clank, scraping his knuckles. Jaden hissed under his breath as a bead of blood mingled instantly with the rainwater. "You okay?" Emily asked, taking a half-step closer before stopping herself. He wiped his hand on his jeans, forcing a grin. "All good? These just been on here a while." She watched his fingers, the speed and confidence loosen, pull, replace. The soft whir of passing cars in the distance, the occasional whoosh of tires on wet pavement, made their little pocket of light feel strange and isolated. "I can Venmo you," she blurted suddenly. "Or cash. Whatever. I don't want to." You know, take advantage. Jaden shrugged. You don't have to. I just didn't want you stuck out here. That answer made something twist inside her. My ex would have driven right by, she thought bitterly. Her brain threw up random details as she tried to steady her breathing. The way his hoodie was frayed at the cuffs, the faint hum of his idling SUV behind them, the smell of rain and hot rubber as he worked. But under that was a nervous flutter she hated admitting. A black teenage boy, a lonely road, her being alone. She remembered the news alerts she'd seen earlier that week, a hit-and-run suspect, black SUV, partial plate number. She'd swiped them away at the time, annoyed at her phone. But the words had stuck somewhere at the back of her mind, like a splinter. Don't be ridiculous, she scolded herself now. He's helping you. But then his phone buzzed in his pocket, the harsh vibration loud in the quiet. He didn't check it, just kept working, shoulders tight. Your family know you're out here? She asked, trying to make conversation and push all the ugly, uninvited thoughts aside. My mom thinks I'm on my way home, he said. She worries a lot, especially when I'm driving at night. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Cops in this area don't exactly see me and think honor roll student, you know. Emily's gaze flicked to his SUV again, the dark outline under the orange street lamp. The glint of the license plate she couldn't quite read from this angle. A small chill worked its way down her spine, and she didn't know yet if it came from the wind, the memory of the news, or something deeper she was afraid to name. The rain eased into a soft mist, turning every light into a halo. Jaden spun the last lug nut tight and gave the tire a firm kick, testing it. You're good, he said, standing and wiping his hands again. His breath came out in little white puffs in the chill air. Emily let out a long, shaky exhale she hadn't realized she was holding. Thank you, she murmured, the words heavier than they should have been. I don't know what I would have done. He shrugged, a little embarrassed, eyes darting away. It's just a tire. No, she said, more firmly now. It's not just a tire when it's dark and you're alone and your mind's going crazy. Jaden glanced at her, really looked this time. Her mascara was smudged slightly under her eyes, like she'd had a long day long before this tire ever blew. There was a faint groove on her ring finger where a band used to be. Rough day? He asked gently. She let out a humorless laugh. Rough year, she corrected. But this is the first time in a while someone's just helped without wanting something back. A quiet settled between them, soft and strange. Somewhere a dog barked in the distance. The mist made the world feel closer, like the night had leaned in to listen. You going to college? She asked, filling the silence before it turned awkward. His face brightened almost instantly, like someone switched on a light inside. Trying to, he said. Got into a community college not too far from here. Want to transfer to a university after. Study engineering. Maybe work on electric cars someday. Emily smiled despite herself. The image of him in some big, bright lab, hands still greasy, but surrounded by possibility, hit her unexpectedly hard. You will, she said quietly, surprising both of them. You're the kind of kid who does what he says he's going to do. For a moment, the road, the rain, the earlier flicker of fear, everything faded. There were just two people under a streetlight, trading small pieces of hope. At least let me pay you, she insisted. Or maybe I can help you somehow. I work in real estate. I know people. If you ever need a reference, or Jaden shook his head, chuckling softly. Just promise you'll get that tire checked proper tomorrow. The spare won't last forever. Their eyes met, and for the first time, she didn't see a stranger blown up by her fears, just a tired, kind kid who stopped when no one else would. But the illusion of safety, of calm, was thinner than either of them realized, and it was about to tear in a single, terrifying second. Least I can do is walk you back around, Jaden said, nodding toward her driver's side. Some people don't slow down when they see someone on the roadside. You're safer on the passenger side till you get in. Emily nodded, grateful. The two of them walked along the narrow strip of gravel beside the car, their footsteps crunching softly. The world felt oddly quiet now, just the low idle of both engines and the distant tempo of city life far away. As they rounded the back of her car, Emily's eyes drifted, almost lazily, to the SUV behind them, the black Honda Pilot that had been a harmless silhouette all this time. The streetlight caught the chrome of the license plate frame first. It had a faded football logo and a cracked plastic cover. Her gaze slid down to the plate itself. Reading the letters without meaning at first, BK7-21F. Her brain stumbled, then sprinted. The image flashed in her memory like a notification popping open. Hit. Suspect black SUV, possibly Honda. Plate starting with BK722. Last seen near I-84. She stopped walking. The sound of the world rushed back, all at once the hum of the engines, the far-off siren, the wet drip of water from the undercarriage of her own car. "You okay?" Jaden asked, turning to her, brows knitting. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She could suddenly hear her sister's voice in her head, the one who always said, "You're too trusting. Em, one day it's going to get you hurt." Her mouth went dry. She stared at the plate, then at him. The hoodie, the black SUV, the late hour. Her phone was still in her hand. Her thumb hovered over the screen, trembling. "Ma'am?" Jaden said again, confusion edging into his tone. "You good?" The white mist of his breath drifted between them like a ghost. Emily's rational mind scrambled for footing, but it was drowning in fear. Headlines, crime podcasts, everything ugly the world had taught her to expect. Her thumb opened the emergency call screen almost on its own. For the first time since he'd stopped, she looked at him not as a boy who helped her, but as a danger she might have let too close. And once that shift happened, she wasn't sure she knew how to pull it back. She swallowed hard, forcing her voice to sound casual and, failing. I just felt dizzy for a second," she lied, her throat tight. Maybe I should sit down." Jaden stepped back instantly, giving her space. "Yeah, of course," he said. "You want some water? I got a bottle in my car." The word car snagged on her mind. She glanced again at the plate, the numbers burning now. BK721F. The memory from earlier that day sharpened, sitting in the office break room, scrolling through her phone. The news article had a grainy photo of a little girl's pink backpack lying in the street, a black SUV speeding away. Police seek information. Plate believed to begin with BK72. She'd turned her phone face down, heart aching, muttering, "What is wrong with people?" Now, that same sick, cold dread crawled up her spine, but this time it had a face. No, I'm fine," she said too quickly. You've done enough." The words sounded wrong the moment they left her mouth, like she was pushing something good away and didn't know why. Her thumb brushed the side button of her phone 3 times, enough to pull up the option to call emergency services with one more motion. "What if it's him?" her brain whispered. "What if you let him drive away and tomorrow you hear about another family, another kid? What if you could have stopped it?" She stole a glance at his hands, at the faint red mark where he'd scraped his knuckles helping her. Those same hands, her fear insisted, could have gripped the steering wheel while plowing through a crosswalk. He tilted his head, noticing the way she kept backing toward her car now. "I'm really okay," she insisted, her voice a notch too high. I just need to get home. Thank you again, really." He nodded slowly, reading something in her that he didn't like. He'd seen that look before, the way fear narrowed pupils, tightened jaws, made people grip their bags closer. "No problem," he said quietly. "Drive safe." She slid into her car with one last, conflicted glance at him, every instinct screaming in a different direction. As she shut the door, the inside of the car became a tiny, silent universe. Her own reflection stared back at her from the dark window, eyes wide, breathing shallow, phone glowing in her hand. On the screen, the emergency slider waited. Outside, through the raindrop-speckled glass, Jaden walked slowly back toward his SUV, shoulders hunched, as if he could feel her decision forming in the air behind him. Emily sat there, unmoving, the engine humming softly beneath her. Her fingers hovered over the screen, the emergency slider, like a thin red line between two possible futures. She watched him in her side mirror as he opened his door, the interior, light briefly outlining the worn seats. The baseball cap tossed on the passenger side, the backpack with a keychain swinging lazily. Not exactly the lair of a criminal mastermind. But fear didn't care about logic. Fear cared about survival. What if I'm wrong? She thought, pulse throbbing in her ears. What if I ruin his life over a coincidence? But then another thought crashed in, sharp and brutal. What if I'm right, and I do nothing? A little girl's pink backpack flashed in her mind like a siren. The article had said she was in critical condition. It hadn't said if she survived. Emily's hand shook. She swiped. The phone rang once, twice, and then a calm dispatcher voice filled her car. 911, what's your emergency? Emily's throat locked. For a second, she almost hung up. I'm not sure if this is anything, she started, her eyes fixed on the SUV behind her, where Jaden now sat with his hands on the wheel, head bowed like he was composing himself before merging back into the world. But there was a hit and run on the news. A black SUV, plate starting with BK722. I'm parked on Route 19, and there's a black Honda Pilot behind me, with a plate that starts like that, and she heard the slight shift in the dispatcher's tone. The quiet focus. Ma'am, are you in immediate danger? Emily glanced at Jaden again. He hadn't moved. No, she whispered. He just helped me with a flat tire. But I thought I should report it, just in case. The dispatcher took the details, location, plate number. Officers are in the area, she said. We'll send a unit to check it out. Stay in your vehicle with the doors locked until they arrive. The call ended. Silence rushed back in, heavy and accusing. Outside, her hazard lights blinked in time with his brake lights as he finally signaled to pull out. As his SUV began to move, she saw a flash of red and blue reflect off his rear window. 2 police cars appeared from around the bend, lights swirling through the mist like something summoned by her fear. Jaden's brake lights flared, then held. He pulled back to the shoulder as the cruiser slowed behind him. Emily's heart dropped to her stomach. She'd told herself she was doing the right thing, the safe thing. But as she watched the officers step out, hands resting near their holsters, something inside her whispered a question she wasn't ready to answer. The scene unfolded like a movie she couldn't pause. One officer approached the driver's side of Jaden's SUV, flashlight cutting sharp beams through the mist. The other hung back, angled slightly, posture wary. Emily's fingers dug into her steering wheel. She could just barely hear muffled voices through her closed windows. The officer's firm tone, Jaden's low replies. The brightness of the flashlight caught the side of his face, the uncertainty in his eyes. Her gut twisted. He doesn't even know I called, she realized. She watched as the officer gestured for him to step out of the vehicle. Jaden did, slowly, palms visible. Emily's heart stuttered. She'd seen videos like this online, watched them from the safety of her couch with a mixture of horror and helplessness. Now she'd placed someone in the middle of one. License and registration, the officer said, his voice clearer now, as a gust of wind carried it toward her. Jaden swallowed and nodded, moving carefully. It's in my wallet, he said. Back pocket. I'm just gonna reach for it, okay? Emily's chest tightened. The fact that he had to narrate his movements, the practiced calm in his voice, it was all wrong and way too familiar. The other officer circled the SUV, glancing at the rear plate, then speaking into the radio on his shoulder. Emily's phone buzzed in her hand, A text from a coworker she didn't open. Inside her car, it smelled like old coffee and fear. You did the right thing, one voice in her head insisted. If he's innocent, they'll let him go. But another voice, quieter and crueler, asked, and what will happen to him before that? While they check things out. She saw the officer ask him to step toward the back of the vehicle. Jaden obeyed, jaw tight, eyes focused, straight ahead. He looked younger now than he had kneeling by her tire. 17 again, not some shadowy figure her nervous system had conjured. On instinct, her hand went to her door handle. She needed to say something. To tell them he'd helped her, that he'd been kind. That her call came from a place of fear, not certainty. But another wave of panic crashed in. What if they get mad at me for wasting their time? What if I look stupid? Her shame glued her to the seat. The officer's radio crackled loudly. Both men listened. After a moment, the one near Jaden nodded slowly. All right, he said, voice less sharp now. You match part of a plate we're looking into, but the suspect vehicle is confirmed as a different make. And it was missing a front bumper. Yours isn't. He studied Jaden's face. You mind telling me where you've been tonight? Jaden exhaled. Work, he said, Montezzato. Then I stopped to help her with a flat tire. His eyes flicked toward Emily's car, just for a second. The officer followed his gaze. Their eyes met through the rain-speckled glass. In that instant, Emily felt more exposed than if her door had been ripped open. She could have stayed silent, pretended to be just another passing stranger, watching drama unfold on the side of the road. Instead, something in the way his eyes held hers hurt. Confused, but still soft, pushed her hand to the door handle again. This time, she pulled. The cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of wet pavement and exhaust. Ma'am, stay in your vehicle, one of the officers called immediately, holding up a hand. Emily stepped out anyway, legs shaky, her heels slipping slightly on the damp gravel. I'm the one who called, she said, voice barely above the whisper of rain. Both officers turned toward her. For a moment, he leaned back against the workbench, crossing his arms. It wasn't a defensive posture exactly, more like someone bracing for impact. And you think coming here fixes it? Jaden asked. His eyes weren't unkind, but they were tired in a way someone his age shouldn't be. No, Emily said immediately. I think it's the bare minimum. I think you still get to be angry, or never forgive me, or just tell me to leave and never come back. She forced herself to hold his gaze. But I wanted you to know I see it now. The way I looked at you and saw danger before I saw the boy who loves cars and wants to be an engineer. That's on me, not on the news, not on the world, me. Her voice cracked. You didn't deserve that. For a long moment, he said nothing. The quiet stretched out, broken only by the faint hiss of a pneumatic tool being used in the next bay. It was one of those stillnesses where everything important rearranged itself just under the surface. You know what the worst part was? He said finally, his voice low. It wasn't the cops. I mean, don't get me wrong, I hate that. But I've been followed around stores. I've been pulled over for rolling a stop when I didn't. I know how to breathe and keep my hands where they can see them. The worst part was watching your face change. He looked at her fully now, the memory clearly sharp. 1 minute you were looking at me like I was a person. Next minute, it was like you were seeing a headline with a heartbeat. The metaphor sliced through her. Emily's cheeks were wet, and she hadn't realized she was crying. I'm sorry, she whispered again. The words felt small, but they were all she had. He let out a slow breath, the air leaving him like a tire losing pressure. My mom always tells me, he said, almost to himself, that some people's fear is bigger than what they see right in front of them. She says my job is to stay alive long enough for them to catch up. He gave a humorless half smile. It's a messed up job for a kid, isn't it? It is, Emily agreed, voice hoarse. And I don't want you to think it's your job to carry my fear ever again." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope, hands trembling. "This is not enough. It's some money for your college fund. I asked your boss. He said, you're saving. I know it doesn't fix anything," but he shook his head before she could finish. "I don't want your money," he said. The firmness wasn't cruel, just steady. "If you want to do something next time you feel that fear, ask yourself who it's really about before you make a call." He paused. "And maybe, if someone asks you what happened that night, tell the whole story, not just the part with the cop lights." She held his gaze, something in her chest loosening and breaking at the same time. "I can do that," she said. "I will do that." She lowered the envelope, but he nudged it back toward her. "Start with you," he said quietly. "Then worry about me." His words landed like a strange kind of mercy, one that didn't excuse her, but invited her to be better. And somehow, that cut deeper than any anger he could have thrown. Weeks later, the road where it all began looked almost ordinary again. The potholes had been patched. The streetlight hummed like it always had. Cars passed without stopping, their headlights sweeping briefly over the guardrail and the wet sparkle of gravel. But for two people, this stretch of asphalt had become a kind of scare, reminder that kindness and fear had collided here, leaving something neither of them could unsee. On a chilly evening in November, a small group gathered at the community center, not far from that road. The flyer had read, "Neighborhood Safety and Trust Meeting. Let's talk about how we see each other." Emily sat in the second row, fingers laced tight in her lap. She'd helped push for this meeting with the local council after too many restless nights. Too many realizations about which stories got told and who paid the price. At the front, a panel of speakers took turns: a local pastor, a social worker, one of the officers from that night. Then, almost at the end, they called up a high school senior named Jaden Davis to talk about young people and policing. Emily watched him walk to the mic, shoulders squared, tie slightly crooked. He cleared his throat, glanced at the rows of faces, some open, some wary, some bored, and began. He didn't say her name. He didn't have to. As he told the story, he focused on the before, the decision to stop, the simple act of changing a tire. The way doing the right thing shouldn't have to come with extra risk, depending on what you look like. He talked about fear, hers, his, the officers. He talked about how easy it was to turn a person into a possibility, and how hard it was to turn them back. Somewhere in the back, someone sniffed, the sound strangely loud in the quiet hall. When he finished, the room was still. Then a few people started to clap. The clapping spread, uneven but sincere. Emily stood too, palms stinging, tears blurring the bright overhead lights. As people began to filter out, she waited near the side door. When Jaden stepped down from the stage, their eyes met across the crowd. There was no dramatic music, no spotlight, just the squeak of chairs, the shuffle of coats, the murmur of neighbors talking about what they'd just heard. He walked over, slow but steady. "You told it well," she said softly. "You told the truth," he replied. "That matters more." She nodded. "I'm trying to," she said, "in my office, with my friends. When someone sends a story in the group chat and everyone jumps to the same conclusion, I say your name in my head, and I remember that I don't actually know the whole story yet." For the first time since that night, he smiled, not a full grin, but real. "That's all I wanted," he said. Outside, through the glass doors, the parking lot glittered with leftover rain. Cars sat in neat rows, their license plates catching the glow of the lamps. Numbers and letters, all different, all ordinary. As Jaden stepped out into the cold, he tossed his keys in his hand and glanced back once at Emily. She stood framed in the doorway, arms folded loosely, no longer hugging herself against invisible threats. She lifted a hand in a small wave. He returned it, then headed toward his black Honda Pilot. The same car, The same plate, the same boy, but now, in at least one person's story, he was no longer a shadow with a headline attached. He was the kid who stopped in the rain, later that night. As Emily drove home past the stretch of road where her tire had once blown, she slowed just a little. The streetlight cast its usual circle of pale gold on the shoulder. For a fleeting moment, she pictured another woman here someday, stuck with a flat, a stranger pulling over to help. She hoped that by then, the world would have fewer reasons to panic at the sight of a black teen in a hoodie and a helpful smile. She rolled down her window, letting the cold air sting her cheeks awake. In the rearview mirror, the road stretched behind her unchanged, but not the same. You can't always control the first story your fear tells, she murmured into the empty car, but you can decide which story you live by. Somewhere behind her, a black SUV merged smoothly onto the highway, heading toward its own horizon. The night swallowed both sets of taillights, but the memory of that roadside, that license plate, that choice, stayed. Moral. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do isn't calling for help. It's questioning the fears that make us call in the first place, and choosing to see a human being where the world taught us to see a threat.